What's happening, everybody? I'm Steve, and welcome back to Junkdrummer TV, where I give my initial reactions to hot takes and my analysis on the drummers of today and yesterday, and maybe tomorrow if I stick around that long. Up until about 6 weeks ago, I was a professional drum teacher, and I'm officially a gigging musician again because my band just got a social distancing gig that's going to actually be on my birthday, May 29th. It's going to be streamed. I think we're going to be playing outside on a stage, and it's going to be like a drive-in, like people are going to drive in their cars, and I guess roll the windows down, and I guess we'll just have to have the volume up really loud, but I'm a gigging musician again. So, video 12 from the quarantine, and I hope everyone is doing okay. I think that there's some, maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not sure. I don't know. I just really want to be able to leave my house. Before we get into it, I'd like to thank the new patrons on my Patreon. All y'all, thank you very much. Thank you, Victor Velasquez, David Harbor, Jeff Sweet, and welcome back, P-Hole. Today's episode is on one of my favorite drummers. I even use his stick. I use the Regal Tip Illy Bees, which is the signature drumstick for Billy Martin of Medeski, Martin and Wood. Medeski, Martin and Wood and Billy Martin are both top 10 bands for me, and definitely a top 10 drummer. He might even be in my top 5. I think that in the last 20 plus years, Medeski, Martin and Wood, and the Bad Plus, and yes, I will be doing a Dave King video eventually, have been one of very few jazz groups, and they're not like a traditional jazz group. You know, they're funk, they're free, you know, have a lot of free jazz in them, a lot of Latin stuff as well. But I think those two bands are the two bands that have moved the jazz movement forward more than just about anyone. Now, I know a lot of people in the comment section will bring people up, and I'd love to hear about them. But man, you know, jazz music, unfortunately, has become what I call Civil War reenactment. You have a lot of cats that, like, graduated college because they need lots of colleges to have out-of-work jazz guys become professors so they can have a job. And they get out in the world, and they kind of are scared to innovate when jazz originally was the most innovative of things. Wynton Marsalis being a gatekeeper on what jazz is or isn't hasn't helped that, but that's another video. But Billy Martin, there's very few drummers in the world where I say, man, I wish I could do that. I want to play like him. I want to play like Billy Martin. Like I said, I play his drumstick. This is the best drumstick ever. Regal Tip, sponsor me, call me. But I've seen Medeski, Martin Wood 5-6 times at least, and it's always a unique experience. You never get the same thing twice, and that's what jazz is. Before we get into it, everyone, please check out my merch table and my Patreon. I meant my merch page. And let's get into Billy Martin of Medeski, Martin and Wood playing a Latin shuffle. This is like a 10-minute video, so we may not make it through all of it. You're going to hear a lot of Latin infused rhythms. You know, this is like an Afro-Cuban rhythm. I'm not an expert on that stuff at all, but I think that this is a naningo or a naningo. I don't know how to say it, but if you've listened to A Love Supreme, it's kind of an homage, I think, to that part. You're going to see masterful interplay, and I cannot stress enough, after you watch this video with my nonsense on it, please go watch the original video, because this might change your life, because it did me. I'll tell the story about finding Medeski, Martin and Wood at the end. So, the rhythm section's playing a real tight groove together, and the keyboard player's just floating over top of it. That's John Medeski playing keyboards. And if you notice, he's just a master. I'm going to be dumbfounded a lot today. If you notice, Billy Martin is kind of switching in between two different tempos, like a double time version of the tempo that he's playing here. If you've never seen MMW or the Bad Plus or any of those kind of more modern jazz groups, this is going to be very foreign to you. Kicked up that tempo. God, they're so good. good. I think they're a damn near perfect band. And Chris Wood is one of my all-time favorite bass players. If you notice, Billy Martin, this is something you'll get a lot out of him, technique-wise, is he has a very subtle finesse touch. He does not ever really smash the drums. He plays a lot with a lot of French grip in his playing. He plays all free technique, which is, bouncing that stick and letting it bounce back, throwing the stick down, letting it bounce up. They're taking their time. They know where they're going to go, but right now they're just exploring the space. John Medeski is a fucking wizard. And notice as soon as Medeski started, bringing up the jam, Billy went to that double time groove right there. The double time Naningo? I think that's how you say it. I know I'm butchering that. Yes. This is free. This is free jazz. This is not a pop song, verses and choruses. This is a music that you experience, and you have to trust the musicians to take you on a ride, because this stuff is so not in the mainstream in the least. So what this kind of looks like is that, maybe this drum solo was planned, but it just really felt like those two, the bass player and piano player, was like, okay, we're kind of done with that thing that we're doing. And they just kind of dropped out and was like, okay, Billy. But yeah, he moves like water. He moves like if Bruce Lee was a drummer, that's how he moves. He's sometimes taking the pulse away and playing free like that. That freaks out a lot of drummers if you just watch YouTube shreds. Because the groove is his to take away and give as he seems fit. And look how intensely that Chris Wood's listening to right here. Listening to other musicians. He's not playing. He wants in on what's going on right here. That's something we can talk about in an educational standpoint. Listening to your other musicians, oh my goodness, it's such a problem with young musicians, and you see it a lot when you see high school bands when they play their talent show, or just younger bands in general, where you can just tell that each instrument player on stage is just in their own world, and there just happens to be some other music going on around them, and they're not connected, and they're not plugged in. I used to play with this old redneck blues guy, and he used to say, man, dude, you gotta make sure you're plugged in with me. And that's what you're seeing right here. Chris Wood knows that they're going somewhere, but he's here, and he might even find excuse me, he may even find some inspiration out of what he's doing as a drum solo and maybe use that in his bass playing. Jazz players are big listeners. I call it big ears. Do you have big ears? I have big ears. But, do you have big ears? And that's what this is. This is three-way tennis. Everyone is plugged in. Let Medeski, again, just staring a hole through Billy Martin. So you can tell that crescendo is, or decrescendo, diminuendo, I know, was their cue to everyone come back in. That bass line is killing. Did you hear that little, I call it like a hi-hat bark, where you can, I need to start eventually get cameras on my feet, where he does where he splashes the hi-hat with his left foot. That's cool stuff. That's a way to get another sound without having to stop one of your other three limbs to get that hi-hat sound. Okay, so I want to address this. What you're saying is Jedi level independence and interdependence. If you're here from a Danny Carey video, a lot of what Danny Carey does, and I'm trying not to mention Danny Carey in every video, but it's hard not to, but a lot of those stacked up, four-way independent things that he does, they all have roots in Latin music. The main groove to Sober, that hi-hat section is a soca. So if you're interested in getting to that level of playing, or at least trying to attempt to touch it, study your Latin rhythms, know your sambas, know your mambos, know your naningos, socas, know that stuff, cause even if you don't eventually like play it in a band, and like dude, where I'm from, I'm never going to be asked to play like a samba, but it's so important to know because it just makes your four limbs work better. So we've kind of been in 12/8, sort of, or 6/8. I always think of 6/8 and 12/8. I know that Naningo is a 12/8 groove. Someone tell my hillbilly ass how you're actually supposed to say that in the comment section. Say, like, look how much power he's able to get, and he's playing like the 1-inch punch, and it's all touch. His touch is perfect. Oh my god, you want to play enough drums to get the touch that he does out of the instruments that he plays. He always plays those old Rogers. I don't think I've ever seen him not play an old Rogers. Yeah, see, there's that real French grip. You know, you see where he's using a whole lot of finger in there, and it's a light, quick, subtle technique. Carter Beauford uses it, but of course he uses it with more power. You're getting those fingers in there. That's where your speed comes from. Your power comes from your wrist. Okay, so I'm pretty aware of this song, but can you hear how... There it is. Yes. Oh, yes, I kind of ruined that. Again, please go back and watch this video without my nonsense on it. Did you notice that, you know, the right side of the stage was still playing that Afro-Cuban feel, but the keyboard player was coaxing a blues song out of it, and he was coaxing this blues song, and then it comes out of nowhere, and then we've got a slamming, shuffle tune. I'm going to bring that back so you can watch the magic of this, morphing into something else. Let me bring that back just a little bit. You can hear that keyboard section sounds like a blues tune. It's coming. Take it a look. If you ain't nodding your head at the house, you ain't got no groove. Jesus. So, what I think that they did with this song, and I thought about it the first time I heard it, was, because they're a little pretentious like this, it's like they did this song to just remind us how much music is intertwined culturally. We just went from an Afro-Cuban feel, Latin feel. Latin is such too generic of a term for it. World music is even worse. And that was all like a 12/8 feel. and then they took it right straight to the American blues, and that is cultural music 101. Everything is connected, and that's what they showed us here. You can live in that groove, man. That's something he does a lot. I love what he did right there. We're going to be talking duple, triple, right? We go from the duple to the triple a lot. You know, we do a lot of like we're playing eighth notes, you know, quarter note, 16th note stuff, 4/4, and go into the triplets a lot. But I don't think enough people does the opposite, where if you're in a 12/8, if you're in a shuffle, slow down a little bit, going from that triplet feel back to the duple. So you can do that. That's what he did right here. I'm going to bring it back a little bit so we can check that out. So if you're in 12/8, don't forget that you can still move back and play 16th notes, you know, 4/4 feeling stuff. Again, let me do that again. So you're shuffling. That's such a cool, it's a cool, simple little trick. Listen right here. Right there. Played like 4 yanda. He is a conjurer of sounds. There was another one. He went from 12/8 to swing and eighth notes. But he conjures sounds, and you can easily coax sounds out of cymbals, especially with a lighter touch. Right back to that Afro-Cuban feel. Billy Martin is man, I think he might be on the Mount Rushmore of drums. He's just insanely good. Because he's never done anything mainstream, you know. I always think of like, you know, like the epitome of like downtown New York art house jazz scene. These guys. Okay, Chris Wood, I love you, but I can't sit through your bass solo because this is a drum channel. But I will watch it after this. So, if I have been able to turn someone on to Billy Martin and Medeski, Martin and Wood, I have done a good deed today. Billy Martin is one of my favorite drummers. Oh man, it's hard to talk about him without talking in real abstract ways because his playing is so abstract. He's obviously like a Brazilian Afro-Cuban master. He's got you know, chops in the jazz world for days because they've done like straight you know, kind of straight ahead jazz stuff like Toxic. There's a lot of Tonic, Live at the Tonic has a lot of just straight jazz on there, but they've just innovated. It's what jazz music has forgotten to do. Oh, the Lincoln Hall Jazz Center has done more to first lionize who needs it, but it also has, I think, this is just my opinion, I'll get this killed in the comment section by a bebop scholar, but that kind of attitude of like preserving something has stifled what jazz can be. You know, I talk about them all the time in almost the same breath. Bad Plus, Medeski, Martin and Wood. There's more. Those are just the two of my favorite. Esbjorn Svensson Trio, which that guy's long dead, is another band I think that was not scared to push. Dave Holland Big Band pushing it. And that's what Medeski, Martin and Wood has done. They've been at the forefront of it. Because, yeah, they play a lot of funk stuff too, but man, funk came from jazz. They took what the Headhunters were doing and like went more. And Miles Davis Bitches Brew era, and then just went more. And they are fantastic. I cannot recommend enough, when the end of the world has ended and there's shows again, go experience, because you don't go watch Billy Martin, you go experience Billy Martin, and it'll make you either do two things: quit drumming, I've had some of those moments with him, or it'll fucking take you to a place where you want to go home and practice like you first bought your drum set. And that's what Billy Martin has always done for me, or made me just want to quit and give up. But I never will, because I want to keep practicing until it's easy.